All right, I believe we're good to go. As long as it said recording for everybody, then we are.
Okay, we're good to go. Okay, today is Thursday, January 6th, 18th, and the time now is 3:14 p.m. And I'd like to call the Community Development Committee meeting to order. And as customary, we'll start off with the invocation. Let's bow our heads for moments of silence, please. Amen. Thank you. Next, the public participation. I don't think we have anyone from the public that I heard in the beginning. There's no one else, right, from the public?
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll move right on along. Okay, we get number B, approval of the minutes, November 30th, 2023. May I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second.
Okay, it's moving second. All vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers nay. Ayes have it. Now we go to number C, which is old business. It's a presentation by the Planning, Preservation, and Sustainability staff regarding proposed changes to the permitted use table to make 5993 tobacco store stands as a conditional use, where it's presented by and permitted use to provide appropriate distance requirements from schools, public or private parks, church, residential area, or other similar establishment.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So again, I'm just back today because there was a request when I did this introduction at the last meeting to just update you before this comes to City Council on next Tuesday for its public hearing. Again, this is pretty basic in terms of it's just adding some clarity on the definition to make it clear that when we talk about tobacco stands in our code, we're really talking about smoke shops, which could be vape, tobacco, anything cigarettes related and what have you. And again, this is a place that puts itself out there as a smoke shop. This is not if the grocery store sells cigarettes at the lottery stand or the convenience store sells cigarettes. This is a smoke or vape shop where that is their primary business activity. This would create a distance separation after the discussion with the committee last time and through the discussion with the Planning Commission. This amendment that'll come to council next Tuesday for that public hearing and ideally first reading would create a 500-foot distance separation between any new smoke shop and any existing smoke shop or existing park, school, church, house of worship, and residential area. So as you'll recall from last time, the map here shows where these where these existing locations are. You can see them kind of here with these different buffer zones around them. And then this is what this would look like with the 500-foot buffer. So we do have a few of them that would be made what we call non-conforming, which means they're existing facilities that would be within the new established buffer area, but that's okay. I mean, we have a lot of things that often as our codes evolve can become non-conforming. But what that means is that in the future, we would not have any more in any of these red areas that would be the buffers around these protected zones, if you would. And with that, like I said, this will come for public hearing next Tuesday. It did get favorable support, I believe unanimous support out of the Planning Commission meeting last month, and would be eligible for first reading on Tuesday after the public hearing. And with that, I'm happy to answer if you've had any questions since I presented last time. Otherwise, we should be ready to move forward with this next week at City Council.
Uh,
All right,
Bear,
any questions?
Bear,
Any, uh,
yes, Chairman,
okay.
and I'm on my phone, so I'm still trying to figure all this out. Just a quick question, Mr. Summerfield. So that means that the one that's at the corner of King and what's that?
Which one? Congress?
King and Congress.
By me? Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty close to the school. It's probably closer than 500 feet. That's okay now because it's grandfathered in and it's been there.
Right.
Yeah, so unfortunately an amortization process is a little more involved. So and again, this amendment doesn't preclude council and staff from looking at and working towards amortization if that is the direction that council would like to go in. This will immediately prevent any new ones from going in those protected buffer areas. But if we wanted to further amend this and come up with an amortization schedule that would kind of create a time schedule for those existing ones that would be made non-conforming, such as like I said, like this one here, several of the ones downtown, like the one you're talking about. That's a heavier lift and some more work would need to be done to do that component. But moving this amendment forward now would just preclude any new operations from going into these areas that we've identified as sensitive because of the connectivity to younger people in the community for a business that's really meant and geared towards adults.
Councilwoman Parker?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Summerfield. So to follow up with Councilman Gregory, so we know that these will be able to stay, but obviously they can continue to get business licenses. It's just really if it shifts ownership, like if a new corporation takes it over or something like that, correct?
Yeah, so as long as they continue in operation at their current location, and yes, they will be eligible to renew their business license, provided that they're in good standing and all that stuff with our other business licensing rules. Yes, the location stays. If, however, the business does go out of business for some period of time, a new one would not be able to reestablish in that location. And I apologize, I cannot remember. I think it's 6 months under our code. So if it were to go out of business, meaning their license is no longer there, the business is closed down. If during that non-conforming period they do not reestablish, then a new one could not go in that location at some point in the future if it's non-conforming.
Right. Okay. Just quick follow-ups, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Do you have any further down on James Island? Do you have the same map for the other portion of James Island? Was anybody impacted there? And have these businesses been notified of this potential change? I know there's a public notice that goes out, but I mean, have these particular businesses that it could affect?
Because we're not affected, well, again, because this amendment is not affecting any existing licensees, we have not done any outreach to those licensees because, again, the amendment that will be before City Council on Tuesday and that was discussed by the Planning Commission will only affect future businesses that don't technically exist at the moment. There was no direct outreach to existing license holders. That said, I will have to double check. I believe that this map doesn't go any farther because this one over here is the furthest one that we have to the west. But I'll double check that. And if there are any, I will make sure to get you that information, Councilwoman. And then, but yeah, no, we didn't have any specific notice to businesses, existing businesses, because again, as written, the amendment does not, would not interfere or impact any existing operation.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Gregory?
Yeah, another question for you. And again, I don't have the ordinance before me right now, but in reading it, I saw something as it relates to MU places, and then I saw something no residential area. Is there some? Am I reading this correctly? That there may be exceptions?
There wouldn't be any exceptions, so I do want to make sure I'm clear. So this would be, it would affect MU as a zoning district.
Development.
Okay.
However, MU
Okay.
is not a residential district, and
Yeah.
so if it wouldn't preclude you from having one of these in an MU district, even though there may be residential above it. But if there's an SR1 or a D, and Christopher's on the line, he'll have to help me with it. The number of residential districts that we have that are residential districts, not mixed use districts, not commercial districts, it would not affect that would not be included in the distance separation. It's only the ones that are defined by the code as residential, and essentially it's exclusively residential districts.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I interpreted that correctly. Okay, just wanted
Yes,
to make
sir.
sure I was interpreting that correctly. All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other questions? No? Do we have to have a motion on that one? Or just for presentation?
No, again, I was only asked to come back with an update based on moving this to Planning Commission. Obviously, council will have the public hearing on Tuesday and have the opportunity to give it first read if they would like. The only thing in addition to that, I would just ask if there is an interest on council to pursue an amortization process for these. I would ask that we do that separate from this amendment, get this amendment on the books, and then let's work because that one, to Councilwoman Parker's point, would have effect on existing businesses. We would want to have more conversation at that point, not just with council members, but with those business owners before we would move forward with that level of approach.
Ready? Thank you. That's for presentation. So we can move right along. Okay. I don't have the current agenda in front of me, so I have to go with what I have. I think next is on the agenda would be new business.
Yes, sir, it is.
That is correct.
Okay, this proposed amendment of the redevelopment strategy for the Grove at Johns Island, formerly the Fenwick Hall. The proposed amendment to go the rental for sale that the units they had for a sale go to all rentals. So
Yes, sir.
You will explain that.
Yes, sir. And I have Sam Coates, who's with me as well today, who's with the Resource Housing Group. But before Sam presents to the committee, I just wanted to share or remind us of the information related to what we initially refer to as the Fenwick site. And so the city of Charleston purchased the Fenwick site back in June of 2020. The city paid about $3.3 million for the acquisition of the land. And the land itself has 12 or so gross acres, approximately 12 acres, 10 acres high. The Resource Housing Group was one of, I believe, 3 to 5 proposers to actually build the housing for the city of Charleston on the site. The RFP, or the request for proposals, was issued back in 2021. And I think as most of you all know, when we put together an RFP, it is issued from our procurement department, and we have representatives from across city departments, as well as the council member, participate on the selection committee for this. As I indicated, the Resource Housing Group was the entity that was selected to build the houses. And at the time that the RFP was released, we asked for both rental and a for sale product. Right now, the developer who has been selected is being somewhat challenged by some of the site configurations and things that are needed to be done on the site, and he'll go into more detail regarding that. I want to also mention to the city committee that these properties are being rendered, if you will, with a ground lease and an option to lease. So literally almost all of the rental developments that we are supporting as of late have a ground lease and an option to lease provision, which means once these units have been constructed and they are held by these developers for a specified period of time, the land and the improvements come back to the city of Charleston, whereby the city will then own both that land or retain ownership of the land, but also have the improvements attached thereto. So I just wanted to set the stage for that. And with that, Sam, if you'll go into a bit more detail regarding the desire to change from rent and for sale to all rent on this site. Thank you. Sam, you are muted.
Yep.
Unmute
Sorry
yourself.
about that. Are y'all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Well, again, I'm Sam Coates. I work for Resource Housing Group, who was selected to develop the Fenwick site. My presentation will include a little bit of double dipping from what Gianna just set the stage with. And again, we took the RFP in November of 21 and submitted to do rental and for sale. And as Gianna noted, as this project's developed, there's been some challenges with the for sale development, which I'll dive into. But I wanted to first give you all a quick update on the 90 rental units that have been funded from the state with tax credits. And we're working our way through the permitting process right now. Here's our current elevation for the 90 family rental units. We are currently working towards a preliminary DRB submission next week, which this concept will come back in front of DRB. This design was picked to mirror the design of the newly constructed multifamily project next door, as well as capture elements from Johns Island that we want to maintain the character of Johns Island on the site. Here's a rough tracker of where we stand in the process. Here you can see next week we will be submitting DRB preliminary. That will get us right at the 50% entitlement mark with the city. So we are making progress here nicely on the permitting through the city's process. Here is the sketch of the site that we submitted with the RFP. You can see we have townhome units, which are these smaller units. They're duplexes scattered throughout the site, as well as the apartment buildings and community area centered in the site. As we moved through the design of this site, it became apparent to us that we needed to group these for sale units together onto a contiguous parcel for the tax credits of the rental parcel, as well as development of the future phases to have them all in one location. The location we chose to congregate the for sale units is this southeast portion of the property here. Since the RFP submission, at the time we submitted the RFP, we were needing no additional investment from the city to construct the for sale affordable townhomes. Interest rates were low, construction pricing had not inflated, and there was, the project could support itself independently without additional investment from the city. Since the RFP was submitted in November of 21, the Federal Reserve has raised rates, which I know we're all, in tune with. They've gone from, kind of near zero to 5.5, as well as COVID and some other COVID-related issues and construction demand and inflation had caused construction prices to soar. We've seen roughly a 15% increase in construction pricing since the time of the RFP, as well as the interest rate hike that we've talked about. And at this point in time, given our current modeling of the economics, a single family for sale concept would require a financial contribution from the city in the environment that we're in today. Here is a concept that we worked through at the beginning of this process. We were really challenged to include as many for sale units as we possibly could. This concept you see here is a 58 unit townhome development, which we pursued. And you can see that a lot of these units here that my cursor is pointing out at this time utilize a neighboring project's to be public roads for access of these units. That was really the only way we were able to achieve a large density on the site, was to access these units from this parcel. This project, that's the neighboring project, has been in the permitting process in the city of Charleston since the RFP has been put out. And this project has seen a lot of obstacles that they're faced with in the permitting, and there's currently no path forward under my knowledge for this project. It's most recently gone through, I think they went back in front of TRC in November, if I'm not mistaken, of this past year, and were denied again. So they currently are not moving forward, which has made us have to pivot and eliminate access from this neighboring project as part of our phase 2 for the Fenwick tract. As you know, we can't wait for them to potentially get approval. We need to move forward with a concept that is viable. That issue, coupled with the area that it requires to incorporate all the stormwater requirements, save the healthy grand trees and the wetlands on properties, has really confined the space that we have available for a phase 2 project on the Fenwick tract. You can see here the wetlands, towards River Road, and the wetlands on the rear of the property, and we're kind of left with this section in the middle, which on the next screen you'll see, or on future screens you'll see the rental parcel is taking up most of this area. So what we've been able to come up with for a for-sale townhome development is 24 units, which is far less than the 58 or the 40 that we proposed in the RFP. And this really is maximizing the space that we have available for townhomes. And given the current market conditions, to supply units from 80% to 100% AMI, there would be an investment of $1.1 million required from the city to bring this project to life. And in my personal opinion, I do feel that contribution would be on the light end. I personally believe that this would require a larger investment to come to life. The other option that I want to propose to council and to the city is doing a senior development under the low-income housing tax credit program, just as we have secured financing for the 90 family units that you see. The 90 family units is the area that I'm circling with the cursor now. This senior concept would be one building, 60 senior units. You can see here, these are the buildings, and this is the parking field. This concept is able to save most of the healthy grand trees. These blue and yellow grand trees are the healthiest grand trees. The orange and red are unhealthy. And our concept here really only would eliminate one C grade grand tree, which is pretty remarkable to be able to fit this building in, given the cluster of grand trees on this side of the property. A senior development would achieve the density of 150 affordable units on site. That's what the property is currently zoned for. And with a senior project, we would hit 150 affordable units, which I know has been a big goal of the city. To bring this project to life and to be competitive for tax credit funding in this year's 2024 round, we would request an infrastructure contribution from the city of $600,000. This is roughly $600,000 less than the contribution needed for a for-sale 24-unit for-sale affordable townhome development. And this senior concept would allow for more above-ground stormwater, which would decrease the overall infrastructure cost of the master development by at least $500,000. And I wanted to highlight that here. You can see that the ponds in our past iterations have been small and not contiguous, and that really does not carry much stormwater load. If we were able to increase the size of the above ground ponds, that we would see a great savings in underground stormwater. We're going to have some regardless, but we would be able to decrease the amount of underground storage of the stormwater and carry more above ground, which is much more cost effective. As well as all these other factors, we would be supplying housing to seniors specifically at the Grove on Johns Island. There's a great demand in the market area. The market area is James Island, West Ashley, as well as Johns Island. And you can see I got a preliminary market and analysis of what 60 rental units would do in this area. And there's over 1,100 qualified households, which is about a fourth of the rental households in this market area that would qualify to live in this senior project, which is a very, very strong report. It is, we look at a lot of capture rates for a lot of the projects we propose, and anything in the single digits, displays great demand of an area. So there is a very large demand for seniors in this market.
Can I just one question? This is Dudley, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To finance it, you're trying to get tax credits, you said?
Correct.
Have you contemplated at all going to HUD and trying to get a 202?
There's many financing strategies that we could go after and avenues. In my opinion, I think that pursuing tax credit financing, and really as it's going to pertain to the leveraging that we're going to be able to achieve at this project, is going to be the best bang for the buck and best path forward for the city. We can of course contemplate other financing vessels.
The reason why, if you did use the 202, wouldn't subsidy come with it, with those units from HUD?
I do not believe the subsidy needed to construct a senior project. No. Let me do more research on that before I give you
the question I'm asking is, okay, if you get a 202 and the units, not the construction, but the units and the tenants would have a subsidy. Either the units would be subsidized, or the tenants would have tenant-based subsidy. Okay, which then can be used as a part of trying to finance this entire project, couldn't it?
Correct. It would drive more debt. That's the piece that I don't believe, that those rents, that the subsidy rents that would come along with that loan would, and with that program, would fill the gap that the tax credits would fill. I could look into that to give you a definitive answer, but I think that the tax credit equity,
and because over time it would be a grant, really.
Right. Correct. And I'll look into this. That's a financing vessel that we absolutely could look at pursuing.
Okay, just throwing that out.
Yep.
For consideration. Okay.
Very valid point. Thank you for bringing that up.
As well as perhaps 504, housing for the disabled. Either one of those, or a mixture of the two.
Right. Correct.
Okay. All right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. And then that I briefly touched on it a minute ago, but overall leveraging is something that I'd like to bring up as it relates to comparing these two projects. The 90-unit family rental project, $32 million project, $1 million investment from the city. We're able to leverage the city's contribution 32 times, the city's money on the family project, which is great. The for sale project would roughly be a $6.5 million project that would require $1.1 million. You're getting about 6 times the investment from the for sale. A senior project, we would achieve 38 times the investment from the city in total project costs. So when you match these two options up, the family and the for sale, you're getting about 18 times the city's money. And when you match up a senior with a family, you're getting 32 times the city's contribution, which is double the impact of the city's money. And Gianna made a really great point. In addition to stretching the city's dollar twice as far as it would for a for sale affordable concept, after 50 years, the improvements go to the city. So this $55 million project today, in 50 years from now, we're at a bare minimum, you're looking at $100 million city asset. And that's a very, very low estimation of the value of this project in 50 years. So that's a big asset to the city, of having an asset come back to the city of that size. And I know that I've kind of gone over 3 years of history and skipped over a lot of things that I'm very in tune with. So I wanted to stop and let anyone ask any other questions that y'all may have or clarifications we could go back to.
Okay, let me ask a question. With the state tax credit, if that's approved, that would only be for the 15 years?
It is a 15-year initial compliance period. We waive the qualified contract option. So there will be 30 years of affordability on this project. I believe that our agreement with the city of Charleston requires this project stay affordable for all 50 years of the ground lease.
Right.
So yes, the tax credits will have a 30-year compliance period, but there's protection of this property being affordable for at least 50.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to find out, because we ran into that problem too many times. That after the tax credit is gone, then everything went fair market, and people was moving all over the place and didn't find a place to go, especially even the seniors. And that was affecting them a lot. So I just wanted to make sure of that. That's why that question was asked.
Right, and I think it's the state agencies pretty much uniformly across the country have been extending the affordability. They've been requiring developers to waive this qualified contract exit, which is after 15 years, you can go through a process to convert it to market, which is what you're referencing here. South Carolina is really making it where you're not going to get an allocation unless you say, hey, this is going to be affordable for all 30 years. In addition to that point, these projects do need to be renovated and rehabbed. And after year 15, you're able to reapply to renovate and to rehab these properties. And it's advantageous for the city, for us as a developer, to recapitalize these projects and resubmit it through the tax credit program, which would, if awarded for a re-syndication, then there would be an additional 15-year requirement put on the property and reset the 30-year affordability. So in our mind, as a developer and long-term owner of this project, we would like to see this continue to cycle and be affordable for for its lifetime.
And council member, I would just add that the ground lease protects us, because once the city owns it, unless the city decides otherwise, these will remain affordable. That's the option of having these as ground leases, or having ground leases in place as the mechanism to protect these units for long-term and affordability for perpetuity.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, as
Yes.
a follow,
Mm-hmm.
So we are saying we're going to try for 24 home ownership opportunities. Did I get that correctly? Instead of the 50 something?
I'm proposing.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Jonna.
Councilmember Gregory, the purpose of us bringing this before the CD committee and then council is because we are asking for a change in what was previously recommended in the RFP. So the RFP did call for both for sale and for rental units on this site, but because of all of the matters that Sam just mentioned, we're now asking that in lieu of the for sale, 60 rental units of senior housing would be developed. So that is what we're asking CD Committee of City Council to consider, and then ultimately council to consider. And conferring with legal and procurement, that is what is required for us to change from what was originally proposed to something new.
And again, to piggyback on, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No,
and that would not include any for sale units then, is what I'm hearing, right?
right.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Correct. And one thing I can bring up here while we are going down that route, I did a lot of research, and I've done a lot of research on for sale affordable projects around the country. And what I've consistently found is to bring these projects to life, even in a low interest rate environment, requires a great city contribution. It's an expensive concept to supply these for sale affordable units. And when interest rates were low, we felt that there was a mechanism to do so. But at the interest rates today, what high interest rates do to for sale affordable is it lowers the potential sales price of the units, which limits the equity that that goes into the product, the back end equity. And the interest rates also make our construction loans more expensive, which increases the budget, the total development cost budget of a project of this nature.
And I clearly understand that. I'm just trying to put my head around reducing the potential wealth creation opportunities by not having for sale properties. But I understand what we have to do in order to make this work. Thank you.
Right.
Just be reminded that there will not be any for sale units. It would all be rental. Correct?
Correct.
Just want to make sure of that.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Parker, you had a question? I see a little puzzle there.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know, I lean on you. Y'all know way more about this than I do. I'm just learning. So I just really am curious what your thoughts are. I mean, certainly we all know that, the construction challenges and all that, but
Right.
I feel the same way as you, Councilmember Gregory. I mean, with what I've learned and if that's what the RFP showed, that's what we were looking for. We're certainly changing the site design. So let me just ask you, are we voting on this today and then council and then moving forward with it, Ms. Johnson? And obviously not, do we have the funds set aside for it already?
So we have funds set aside for $1 million, which is what we committed to as a part of the RFP process for the infrastructure. We do not have funding set aside for the for sale units because when we were contemplating the construction of for sale units, we anticipated that the developer would be able to bring forward the funding necessary to make those happen through private financing. But of course, when we originally did this and looking at the structure of finances and interest rates and all of those things currently, naturally it has changed the picture and changed the outcome. And so what we are finding, although I would just say for sale, I love and I support at every turn because it's so important to building wealth, having a level of subsidy available to support for sale would be important. And right now, we have not set aside in our current allocations an additional $1,112,000, whatever that amount is. I think, Sam, is what you were referring to. We don't have that ready for a for sale component. And that's not to say we couldn't get it when this is finally ready, but at the moment, we do not have that set aside.
Okay, Mr. Coates, would you mind going back to that one screenshot where you had all the options laid out?
Yes, the leveraging.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
And then again, Mr. Chairman, are we voting on the amendment? Sorry.
Yes, we are supposed to vote today on it, and then it goes to council, and council will vote on it one way or the other. So we have to vote to send the council for the change because this came through us, and they're making a change from the home ownership to all rentals. So we have to vote, say we are voting for that change, and then it goes to council. What council going to do, I don't know, but this is what happened here.
I'd like to add in that I'm not coming, and Gianna has the background on this. I'm not coming to y'all lightly. Gianna, I've worked with Gianna trying to figure out a way to make this for sale work for the past 18 months. I've been dedicated to doing exactly what the city wanted to see here. But the problems that we've had have really started to add up on us. And this senior option really does solve the problems that we've encountered since the RFP selection was made.
Any other questions? Councilman Gregory, have any more questions?
No, I mean, I'm going to go with staff's recommendations on this one.
Yeah.
My motion would be to move it forward as amended.
Okay, that's a motion that Councilman Gregory has made. Can we get a second?
Congresswoman Parker, did you have a question?
Oh, Councilman, Woman Parker.
That's okay. Councilmember Gregory, I was just going to ask before, I mean, you made the motion, but do you think we could have a little more time to maybe look at this project again?
I doubt it.
I mean, I think that's totally up to staff to make that determination, but time is cost, as we know.
Yeah, and I would say, Councilwoman Parker and members of the CD Committee of City Council, there is a time frame for submitting the application for low-income housing tax credits that's quickly approaching. Usually, you have to be prepared first quarter of the new year, the new calendar year, and so that is before us. I don't know what will change in our further deliberation. I would just say although for sale is very important because of all that it represents, when we look at the need for both rental and affordable, that is very evident in the numbers that we've seen from the comprehensive plan. And I would also say, as I deliberated this, the fact that we could get 60 units, which is a little bit more than the for sale product that we were going to get, that in my mind helps me to celebrate the fact that we are maximizing our density opportunity here and then maximizing the leverage of our acquisition cost related to this particular site. So I would just leave you with that information.
And that's why I'm looking at it very, very seriously, because I know the tax credit time is winding up, because you have some other organizations going through the tax credit the same way. And if you don't have it in a timely manner, you're not going to get it. So the time is approaching very quickly, and that put me between the rock and the hard place. So that's the only way reason why I'm going to have to support this also in that line and go with staff recommendation at this time.
Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question. I mean, applying for the tax credit is one thing, getting them
and getting it is another.
My question is, suppose we don't get the tax credits this time, where are we?
Whew.
Sam?
In my opinion, going right back to the for sale townhome development and understanding that there's no mechanism to achieve 150 units on the 2 tracks and developing and finding a path forward for 24 for sale affordable units.
No,
essentially we're going to then have to find additional capital in order to help facilitate that.
Yes,
correct.
Okay.
That's the biggest deal.
And that's out there somewhere. We'll just
pursue other HUD funding sources like those that you mentioned, council member, in order to facilitate. Again, I have multiple goals, but certainly maximizing the density on land that we paid in excess of $3 million for is also very important.
And I agree, because the need is there. There's no question.
Yes,
there's no question that there is a need. I'm just trying to figure out all the possibilities. And yes. I just think we should be doing it on a dual track anyway. I think we should be pursuing 202 anyway. I mean, that's a grant. Our 504 anyway, just in case. And he's committed to take a look into that, and that's just another potential alternative for financing this project.
Councilwoman Parker, I saw you had your hands up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, so before we were going, I think we had 120. The goal was 120, and then now we would be at 90 units. Is that correct?
The goal for the entire site was it's zoned to have 150 units. At the RFP, we submitted that we were going to be able to achieve 130 units. So with 24 townhomes, we're looking at 114 units. And if we go with the senior route, we are going to hit 150 units.
Okay.
90 family units that have already been funded, and 60 senior units, which we will submit for funding this year.
Okay, so again, Ms. Johnson, to your point, I mean, again, I know that finding the capital would be hard, but we're not missing out on any units. You don't feel like we're missing out on any units, maximizing those units you know,
Yes,
look-
ma'am. So with the
looking at
60,
the plan
right.
and considering that we might have to find additional capital?
Right. So if we allow for the change, and Sam receives the tax credit funding for the 60 senior units, it actually meets the actual goal of the RFP. Whereas if we went with the for sale units, we fall slightly short of what our original goal was.
Correct. And one thing I did not mention that I'd like to mention, the ability for me to submit this for tax credit financing is a unique opportunity that has come up with a change in that SC Housing made in this year's QAP. You have not been allowed to submit for a phase 2 development until after your phase 1 is developed, leased, and certified from the state. They have changed that this year. They have made a change where you are able to submit for a phase 2 next to a phase 1 that's been previously awarded in a recent cycle. The consultant that I consult with in South Carolina and myself believes that the agency may close that opportunity after this year. So I will, represent that this may be a one-time opportunity as well. An opportunity to do a senior deal with LIHTC credits may be delayed, a few years. The opportunity may not be around for another few years if we do not take advantage of it now.
All right, any other questions? Is the motion still on the floor? And Councilman Gregory, you made the motion. I just seconded. Any other questions? No? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposes? Councilmember Parker?
I apologize. I would prefer more time to look at the project, but I mean, from now until council has to approve, correct?
Correct. I make the motion at council that what we did at our meeting, and then it's still up to council to go through that they're going to.
Okay.
So I'm just sending it over to council that it was approved in the community development, and then it goes back. Okay, motion was moved and second. All in favor, voting aye.
Aye.
I have it. Hold its nay, so it go on to council for council approval. Okay, next.
Thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Sam.
for the presentation and for the information. And next, I think we have,
It's an overview, Council Member Mitchell,
Right,
of the Peninsula Plan from our planning department.
right, because the Housing Authority has been deferred.
Yes, sir.
So we go to number D3, D2, overview of the Peninsula Plan.
That would be 3.
That's the last item, right?
And Chloe Stuber from our planning department is making that presentation, Council Member.
All righty.
Right, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, Chloe.
Great.
Yes, Chloe.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Peninsula Plan and some updates where we are in the process. So just as a quick reminder, this was a recommendation from our city comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2021. The budget for the Peninsula Plan was approved for year 2023. And so this is an update on where we are to date with this process. And this is addressing the entire peninsula, creating a new master plan, so an update from the 1999 downtown plan. Last year, we put out an RFP, and the consultants that were selected to be the lead on the Peninsula Plan process are Air St. Gross. This is the principal firm. They're an urban design firm out of Baltimore. And they have contracted with several firms, some local, to assist with the effort. The Asico Group is one of those local firms. They're assisting with outreach and communication coordination. HR&A Advisors is out of I believe New York and California. They're working on the economic development analysis. Beal Engineering is local, transportation planning, And then lastly, Circulus, also a local firm, assisting with the urban design, bringing a local ecology and bioresilience lens to that. So what is the Peninsula Plan? Again, this is an update to the 1999 downtown plan. It's going to be a community-driven effort, and we are looking to knit together the existing planning efforts that we have going on, recent planning efforts. We want to build on our strengths, address the challenges that we're experiencing now and the future, and have a shared vision for the peninsula. On the right-hand side of this visual is the base map that we provided as part of the RFP. And so this was an internal document that staff created to help refine and define the scope for the Peninsula Plan. So we've highlighted here on this map several of the focus areas. We have some topical focus areas that I'll cover in a second, but I wanted to show you these geographic focus areas, places where we're seeing some more of these pressures, a lot of change, a lot of different opportunities and challenges. So wanting to make sure that we're zooming into these areas specifically in terms of any kind of design outputs and recommendations from the planning process. So as I mentioned, the 4 topical areas of the Peninsula Plan will focus on water first. That's looking at just how can we enhance our relationship with water on the peninsula, and what priorities and values should guide future redevelopment along the waterfront. I'm going to say more about that piece later in the presentation. Neighborhood design. What do you want to what do you want to experience as you're in your neighborhood? Do you want to see, feel? How can we achieve more and better public spaces, more housing options? So here's one of those in this focus area where all of the conversations we've had about affordability and affordable housing would be brought into these conversations about, okay, we need more units. How do we achieve that in terms of design and new development? For peninsula mobility, how can people get around more efficiently, safely, and enjoyably, and not just rely on vehicles for transportation on the peninsula? And how do we make the best use of our streets, which, as we know, in many cases downtown, streets are very narrow. We don't have a ton to work with, so some problem solving around that. And then lastly, economic development. So how do we support a strong economy, resilient economy, equitable economy on the peninsula that provides value to residents, and with a special attention given in the scope of work that we've charged our consultants with to attracting and sustaining local and minority-owned businesses, as both of those are struggling to maintain a presence on the peninsula. And lastly, just want to note that these are our topical focus areas that applied across all of these into the process of the planning effort. We will be incorporating the resilience and equity framework that was defined in the city's comprehensive plan. I mentioned that a lot of this process is just bringing together a lot of the recent and concurrent planning efforts. So this is a snapshot of what those are. I'm not going to read through all of these, but just to show visually the amount of work that has been done that we don't want to replicate, but we want to bring into this and build on. And then also a lot of this effort is coordinating across the other planning efforts that are related to the peninsula in various ways. And just highlight, I'm going to do a quick overview of one particular planning effort that is focused on the amendment to the comprehensive plan to create a new Peninsula Waterfront Redevelopment District as part of our future land use district. So that is something that was added on, was not originally part of the scope for the Peninsula Plan, but was included as part of the scope in response to the union peer planning process.
Chloe,
Yes.
are we not far along enough yet to talk or include the Haggett Avenue plan?
Yes, that could certainly be joining this list with concurrent planning efforts. So
Okay.
good catch. Yes, I will make that edit for future presentations.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And we have provided that to the consultants. It's just we missed it on this list.
Okay.
Good question. Thank you. So the portion of this is sort of an add-on focus, but we're trying to incorporate it into this since a lot of the conversations are overlapping and the communities that we're speaking with. So a little bit about this is, again, coming out of the Union Pier planning process. The port requested a amendment to the comprehensive plan to include a future land use district that would address their site. And so that would not be appropriate to create a land use district just for one property. So we're looking at the whole peninsula waterfront on the right-hand side here, showing the study area for this effort. And we've eliminated, we've really looking at the majority of the waterfront with a few exceptions. So what we're looking at is, again, these guiding questions. It's guiding the whole plan of how can we enhance our relationship with the water and what priorities and values should be guiding future redevelopment in these areas. So the deliverables from this added piece to the Peninsula Plan will be recommendations specifically addressing this that will be incorporated into the Peninsula Plan, but also a proposal for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan for a new Peninsula waterfront redevelopment future land use district. One thing to note is that the study area that was shown on the map that I just presented is not going to be the same thing as the future land use district. So that's just a study area. Part of the work that the consultants will be doing with staff and the community is identifying not just what that district will recommend for, but also where that district should be applied on the map. So what we will be getting from the consultants for this piece of work is essentially a paragraph like our other future land use districts that provide high-level recommendations for the properties that are within that district. So high-level addressing uses, density, heights, public and open space, water access, approaches to stormwater management. These are the types of things we anticipate seeing in the recommendation language for this new land use district. It is not going to change any existing zoning, and it is not going to get into the details of any design recommendations or development terms for any specific properties. So though this land use district would apply to the Union Pier site, it will also apply to other areas, and so it's not going to be addressing Union Pier specifically. So any questions about the waterfront redevelopment district portion of this work before I go into additional updates with the Peninsula Plan? Okay. So we have had 2 series of public workshops on the Peninsula Plan so far. We kicked off the effort in September of last year with 2 community open houses and 2 stakeholder workshops. Had over 200 participants across these 4 events. We had a variety of folks represented in these spaces. In December, we kicked off the waterfront specific part of this work, again with additional community open houses, and we held 1 full day of, we did a waterfront tour with a group of neighborhood leaders, advocacy leaders, consultants, and staff. The consultant teams were both from the Peninsula Plan and the Union Pier planning effort. And we toured different key waterfront sites around the peninsula to talk about those places and experience those places, and also especially hear from the neighborhood leaders of those neighborhoods that are adjacent to those places where we were visiting, to really hear their stories and experiences with recent development, their priorities for future development there. So again, across these efforts, nearly 200 participants, and I will highlight that the Union Pier planning team was incorporated in all of these events, were present in all of these events, and also we had higher presence from maritime industry professionals in these events, and that was intentional given the topic of discussion. And there's been a number of other engagement as well, several focus groups, advocacy groups around the community, some commissions with the city, and we have done a radio interview on Radio. We've our consultants have done a pop-up in Mall Park in the east side. We also have an online virtual meeting for those who we aren't able to reach in person. This is just what we've done so far, and there will be more planned, more to come. So the timeline, again, kicked off in September. We had our session in December on waterfront planning. Our next round of workshops will be February 5th through 7th. And we'll be providing, we'll be sending out outreach materials about that soon and a schedule so that folks can get these on their calendar, these dates on their calendars. We anticipate having a final draft of the comprehensive plan amendment in March or April. And our consultants will be back in town in mid-April to start testing some of the recommendations of design concepts and building consensus. And then we hope to be finalizing the plan this summer. So far, the emerging themes from the conversations we've had with community members and stakeholders, again, these will be continued. These are not final, these are just a draft. We'll continue to refine these through engagement with the community. On history, so respecting the varied experiences, stories, development of the peninsula, culture, amplifying our uniqueness and the needs of residents, movement, and especially prioritizing non-vehicular systems. So we need that all systems need to be improved, but the safety of those not in vehicles is paramount. Access, connecting residents with the waterfront and also high quality public spaces. And then finally, where we do need to grow, aligning that growth with high ground. And a water and equity lens is something that we'll be applying to all of these and discussing as we move forward. Here's the plan's website. We have an email address that folks can send questions to for the Peninsula Plan that will come to myself and Christopher. We have our monthly newsletter that folks can subscribe to get updates on this effort as well as other planning efforts. And then we will be posting regularly to social media sites.
Hey, Chloe, this is Dudley. And I did attend one of those, and I thought the crowd was unbelievable, and the stickums that you had was unbelievable as well. So the bottom line is learning how to live with water.
Say that's one of the bottom lines, yes, and I would say that's the first that we need to address as part of this planning effort. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. I was mute. Any other questions?
No questions. Great presentation. Thank you. But hey, oh, there we go. Never mind.
Go ahead. That's it.
It's going to be very important, at least for me, that Councilmember Seekings at least get a copy of the PowerPoint or something, because while Councilmember Mitchell and I are responsible for 5/6 of the peninsula, a large portion of this plan will be applicable to a part of the peninsula that Councilmember Seekings is responsible for. So we need to really draw him in somehow and do a debriefing with him, Chloe, if we can at some point, at least offer.
Absolutely. I can get with Robert on setting something up for that. He was part of the RFP process, but absolutely we want to keep him engaged in this process.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay.
I always appreciate all you do, Chloe. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions or concerns? Nothing else? I think we got it all.
Councilmember, that is the last item on the agenda.
All righty. Well, if you don't have any other questions, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a good weekend, folks. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you for hanging in there earlier, everyone. I appreciate it.
Patrick.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Have a good one.